Welcome back to another episode of Investies. This week on the podcast, we are going to discuss how geopolitical issues affect the stock market, how they've affected the stock market in the last 2 weeks, and we're going to work on developing a perspective on what we can expect from the stock market in this quarter. For those unfamiliar with the term geopolitics, it is politics, especially international relations, as influenced by geographical factors. For today's episode specifically, we are discussing the politics on the Israel and Gaza conflict and how this has been affecting the stock market and can potentially affect the stock market in the future. So before we get into the stock market, I'm going to lay out the most recent politics that are currently shaping an effect on the situation. It is important to note that this is a developing story. As the Israel and Hamas conflict continues and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza grows, the United Nations Security Council has been meeting to try and come to agreements on what actions to take. Russia, Brazil, and the United States have all submitted resolutions, but none of them have gotten the sufficient number of votes to pass. I believe that the market is responding to the deadlock at the UN as well as the reaction on social media and in the streets. Once the Council agrees on a path forward for the humanitarian crisis, we may see some stabilization in the stock market. On a high level, these are the current geopolitical issues that are taking place. As investors, it is important for us to pay attention to geopolitics and assess what the effect can be on the stock market. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to discuss how all of this has affected the market in the last 2 weeks, and then how we anticipate it to affect the market moving forward. Investies, I realize how overwhelming these last several weeks have been with all the news. The catalyst for my pivot into having a platform where I discuss investing was COVID 2020. But the reason why I actually began is because I understood the disparity that was going to take place for marginalized communities. I believe that learning about how money works and how to build generational wealth is a form of resistance. I want to invite you on November 4th and 5th to join me for Wealth Warrior, the course. Wealth Warrior, the course, takes a deep dive into the stock market. It is 5 hours on Saturday, 5 hours on Sunday, where we will go over everything you need to know about the stock market to begin building generational wealth. Not only do I cover the stock market, but I also cover what I call money wounds, addressing your personal relationship with money. I believe there's no time like these times to start to understand how this system works so that we can begin utilizing it in our favor. I look forward to seeing you on November 4th and 5th. And we're back. After Hamas executed horrific attacks on Israel, I thought for certain that the stock market would react in a negative way. I was expecting the reaction come Monday morning. It was positive, meaning the stock prices were going up. At the start of the market, it did open negative, but as we moved through the day, it did begin to rally, which means moving upwards, and we closed positive. The reason why we have seen some strong days is because we are currently going through earnings season. I've talked about earnings season in our earlier episodes. Be sure to check those out. On a high level, earnings season is when publicly traded companies share how they've performed throughout the quarter. And this quarter so far, we have a relatively strong earnings season. This is the entire point of the stock market. You purchase shares in the stock market to own a piece of publicly traded companies. Your shares grow based on how well that publicly traded company is performing. And so when you have companies performing well during earnings season, you will typically see a positive market. When we have geopolitical issues, you will see a weaker market. It's not going to react as strong as it would have reacted had we not had those political issues. Something else you will start to notice is if we have negative news, you will see the market overreact to that negative news. If the geopolitical issues begin to get stronger, then overall, we will start to see profit taking. Profit taking is when people begin selling out of their stocks in order to capitalize on any profits or remove any money from the market. Currently, what I am witnessing in the market is that it will move into a positive direction if it has positive news on earnings, but barely. And if it has negative news on earnings, then I am watching it take a tumble. It will go down and overreact. If we didn't have these geopolitical issues, I do not think it would come down as far as it has come down in certain instances. With that being said, it is important for me to disclose that I haven't seen any analysts worried about geopolitical issues when it comes to the stock market. That doesn't mean that geopolitical issues are not currently impacting the stock market. It just means that we have yet to see any analysts discuss it. Looking forward in the market, we still have so many more companies to report. We are just barely at the start of earnings season. We are getting through the thick of the tech companies. And so I think the market is going to overreact on negative news like negative earnings reports and mildly react to positive news like positive earnings reports. So we can see if earnings season will sustain a positive, mild reaction. Now, typically towards the end of the year, we tend to see an end of year rally. That is still in question if we're going to see this end of year rally. I definitely do not feel confident for an end of year rally. Many analysts on Wall Street disagree with me, so please take what I am saying with a grain of salt. I just think that there are too many geopolitical issues for me to say that we are going to finish off the year on a positive note. That perspective can completely change for me if we start to see positive news coming in on inflation. We have some positive data coming in this week, and from that data, we need to see inflation come down. And I think that the market will react somewhat positive to that and maybe add some positive energy. However, if the inflation data shows high inflation, then again, we will overreact because right now the market is weak due to the geopolitical issues. But again, if I have learned anything from the stock market, it's that the unexpected will always happen, and the unexpected can be positive and the unexpected can be negative. The biggest takeaway this week is that it is important for us to be paying attention, not just on the stock market, not just on earnings and inflation, but also with geopolitical issues. We are in, some would say, really bad times. And while I don't disagree with that, I also think that we are in really important times where we can learn lessons, reflect on the past, and understand how all of these systems work so that we can have a louder voice within the systems. Pay attention, do your research. Those two actions are also an investment. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. Investies is a Cosmic Standard and In Luz We Trust production. A big thank you to the team, Eliza Smith, Jacob Winnick, Asia Simpson, and Nina Gensler Debs.